Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast, navigating through the commercial transportation industry in Alberta and beyond, powered by the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Here's your host, Kelsey Hipkin.
Hello, friends of Steering Change. Today we're diving into a tradition that's been testing commercial driver skill, precision, and professionalism for generations. The Professional Truck Driving Championship, or PTDC, taking place this year once again at AMTA's Edmonton location at EIA on Saturday, May 30th. Formerly known as the Rodeo, this event has an incredible legacy, 76 competitions strong, dating all the way back to 1949. While a couple of years were missed during COVID, the spirit of the championship has never slowed down. Year after year, it continues to showcase the very best in driver skill, safety, and control. This is more than a competition. It's a celebration of an industry and the people who keep it moving. And with only 2 events like this remaining in Western Canada, it's something pretty special to be a part of. And speaking of, let's give a shout out to our friends at the Manitoba Trucking Association, who are also holding their event on May 30th, open to both Manitoba and Saskatchewan drivers. Let's get into it. Today we're going behind the scenes and onto the course to hear from the people who make it all happen. Matt, Don, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So I'm going to start with you, Matt. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to be involved with the Professional Truck Driving Championship.
I started off originally as a competitor in 2012.
It's been a minute.
So, yeah, I've been around for a while. I've actually won one category. It was the single category. That was in 2013. In 2014, I moved into the office. At the time, we weren't allowed to be part-time drivers and compete in the contest, and that's actually how I moved into the committee role that I'm in right now. So,
awesome, thanks, Matt. And Don, same question.
For me, Kelsey, I got into volunteering with the Professional Truck Driver Championships back in 2015, and been attending pretty much every year since then.
So we have 2 tenured veterans here. I can speak for both of you. Thank you so much for your time throughout the years. Clearly, without you two, it's hard to get this event going, and the same with our other committee members for that matter. So everyone hugely important. I'm going to start with you for this one, Don, but it will be the same question for both. How would you describe the event to someone who has never seen or heard of it before?
I would put it in play that it's a competition. So, it's a great way for an individual to showcase their knowledge of the trucking industry. They're required to do a written test, which will test, their knowledge of the rules of the road. They have to perform a pre-trip inspection. So that'll give a good idea of how they perform their duties when they're getting the truck ready to put it on the road and put it in motion. And then when they're out on the track, of course, we get to test their driving skills and how they operate the truck and how they can navigate it and maneuver it in tight spaces. It truly is quite an art to watch it happen from start to finish. And why? Just from being there and watching everybody, it's quite the enjoyable time. Everybody seems to have a lot of fun doing it.
Absolutely. And same question, Matt. I've never seen this event before. How would you sell it to me?
It's a skills competition, but it's not hard. And I have to qualify that. It's not hard because it's stuff that if you're a full-time driver, or even me, a part-time driver, we do this day in and day out, or every day that we come into work. It's something that we just do, but the competition aspect of it puts a whole different spin on it. And it's a wild experience, and you can have every day the perfect day, and you show up on competition day, and it can either be the best experience of your life or the worst experience of your life. And it's which driver shows up that day. And everybody that shows up has an equal opportunity to win.
Absolutely.
And that's probably the coolest part.
And that's how the track's set up, right? Same trucks for everybody, same course for everyone. I mean, it varies for the Super Bs, but you're competing against the same Super B drivers in the same Super B truck. So it's a level playing field. It's just like you said, it's like, how is your drive going to be that particular day?
The only thing that changes is the driver. Everything else is the same.
So I've been doing this for 9 years now. This will be my 9th PTDC. And just speaking from kind of an outsider perspective, a motoring public's perspective, I think it's important to note people don't get to see trucks doing these types of things up close, right? Usually we're passing them on the highway. We're seeing them maybe at a loading dock, depending on where we're driving in the city. I think that's just a huge important piece of this too, is that the motoring public sees just what it takes to maneuver these vehicles. And then that safety element comes into it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stay with you, Matt. Most times people only see the event from start to finish. But as you both know, can you tell me a bit about what goes into preparing the track for this event?
This event lives and dies with volunteers. It doesn't happen without an army of volunteers. And I think that's one of the funner parts for non-drivers. The people that I have met over the years, for the most part, it's the same core group of volunteers that we have year after year. I also want to add, it's also the same core group of drivers that we seem to have year after year. It's always really fun to watch the new drivers come in because they bond and they kind of gel with the seasoned veterans. And the same thing happens on the volunteer side. You have, the one person that's done this one station for 6 years, and he or she has a whole brand new team of people to kind of guide and lead. And it's just an amazing Saturday event. It's hard to explain unless you put that work in. We usually start the Friday morning before, and it takes us pretty much all day to put that track together. And we spring for lunch. We meet up to kind of collect our souls for dinner, and then we're there bright and early again at 6 a.m. for showtime. Registration starts at 7, and again, volunteers are running around, putting those final little pieces, getting everybody all accounted for, and then the show starts, and it's all down to the drivers that show up to compete for that day, and it's their time to shine.
Absolutely. And a subtle nudge there from Matt to our listeners. If you were considering or on the fence about volunteering or driving, here's your chance. 2026 is your year. Don, anything from you to add on getting the track set up and ready to go?
Yeah, as Matt said, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make this whole event go off. But track setup, basically we're there usually Thursday night. We come up the night before so that we're there fresh for Friday. We hit the ground running. There's a lot to do, from unloading the track equipment out of the trailer. Sometimes we may have to do a little maintenance on some of the equipment. And then it's, strategically placing all the stations where they need to be on the track, set up. And, then we need to get the equipment in place, run the equipment through the track as we set it up, so everybody can rest assured that there has been a vehicle that has run through the track before the competitors actually get to it, so that we know that everything is measured and everything needs to be for the day of the competition. And, that pretty much takes us the whole day. And then we usually, as Matt said, we take a break, we collect our thoughts the night before, and then it's showtime. 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, that's when the butterflies for the track committee come out. Because we're here making sure that it's ready to go and that we've gotten everything put together. And hopefully it didn't rain or it wasn't windy the night before. We've had that where we've come in on Saturday
Last
morning
year especially.
and the track's a disaster, and we have to try to fix it before we get the competition going. So. But it's really rewarding at the end, to get it all put together and to watch this event go off.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. So, Matt, as you mentioned, you have competed in this event before. From that perspective, what does it mean to get out there and compete against your fellow drivers?
I don't see it as necessarily a competition.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you have the same people year after year, this is really the only time we get to see each other and see our fellow drivers. We work for different companies. We work in different sectors of the industry. So this is really the only time that we get the chance to see. One of my favorite things is when you're sequestered and you're awaiting your turn, and you have the same group of drivers, and you're catching up, and then all of a sudden somebody gets picked and they're gone, and you're just waiting your turn, and that pressure is building, and that experience is building, and then when you finally get picked for your turn, it's an unbelievable experience as you're walking up to the truck. It's something you do every day. It's something you take for absolute granted. I remember competing in nationals back in it was 13 or 14. I could only describe it as this is something I know it's something I do I won my way to get here.
Yeah.
It's something I do every single day. And yet that long walk up to the side of the truck, your mouth just completely dries out. Your head is spinning at a mile a minute. And it's almost, the only way I can describe it is just a fight or flight instinct. And like I said, once you release the brakes and the wheels start turning, I can't, the only way I can describe it is either it goes well for you or it doesn't. And what kind of a driver shows up, like I said earlier, what kind of a driver shows up, that's the presentation that you leave. And I've always found that every single one of our participants has represented their company with the professionalism and skill that it takes to operate one of these vehicles on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Don, you are no stranger to the cab of a Class 1 vehicle. Does this also kind of speak to a deeper camaraderie among drivers regardless?
For sure. I mean, as Matt was saying, drivers, we work for different companies, we have different names on the side of our trucks during the daytime. But when you get into this competition, we get to meet each other and hang out. And at that point in time, what we do outside of this competition kind of goes away. And, we're all friends. We're all here to cheer each other on. Of course, somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to come home the champion. But, everybody competes on a level field to make that happen.
And Matt has kind of touched on this a little bit, but what separates a good driver from a great driver when it comes to a competition like this? And
that's a great question, and it's pretty tough to answer that. A good driver is a highly skilled driver, but I think the great driver is again very highly skilled, but they just keep it together just a little bit more on the other side of that. Just to build off of kind of what Matt was just talking about, when it depends on what driver shows up that day, and everybody's got the skill sets to pull this off. But just as Matt said, depending, if you come up and it's not quite your day, it's the great drivers that, can dig deep, keep themselves together and not get flustered or get frustrated, and they pull the best out of what they have.
Absolutely.
Because that could be, if you just come in there and you get your setup wrong for one of your maneuvers, that could go sideways in a real hurry. But if you can dig deep and get a little methodical and think your way through it, a lot of the times they can salvage something out of the maneuver and they carry on. So to me, that's what separates the good from the greats.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. And kind of building on that, Matt, what can be the most challenging part of the course or the day, and what can drivers do to mentally prepare? Or can they?
Messing up a station. Don was kind of alluding to it. If you mess up on a station, it's not the end of the world. There's still 8 other stations to do. You can scrub a station and okay, it's time to move on to the next one. And having that mental fortitude, to be able to just wipe away. You messed up at the alley dock. You messed up at the alley dock, just to be able to walk away and go on to the next one, and then the diminishing clearance, and then move on to the serpentine, and just to be able to forget that botched station at the alley dock. That is, I think that separates the good from the great.
For sure.
To be able to take
Move
that
on.
away and to move on. And okay, let's get on to the next one and salvage the run. That right there is that's the only way you can really prepare yourself, because everything is moving so fast. It's moving so quickly. Okay, this didn't work out, on to the next one. And to be able to forget about the last one and to prepare yourself mentally for the next one, that's, I mean, and it's easy for me to say that in this nice comfy chair. You have an audience around, and like I said, it's that fight or flight, and you're on the edge of panic. And to be able to keep yourself collected for that is just, it's the level of satisfaction when you know that you botched one of the stations, but you were able to overcome it and you place. I've seen it time after time that, you know, the person that was in second place in the category, they got 0 points on one station because they just scrubbed it, but they were able to salvage their run and present something that gets them, you know, second or third place. Like that's how you win, and that's how you represent your company.
Awesome. And for our listeners, when a driver registers, you do get a driver's kit. It outlines all the different obstacles that you may be faced with on the track. But as you both mentioned, sometimes you just get a mental block and it's lost, right? So it is that overcoming. It is that fortitude that kind of can separate the drivers.
One of the interesting things with this as well, Kelsey, is that this competition is done in different equipment than what these people drive every day.
Yes, excellent point.
So that brings it to a whole new level playing field, because you know, the equipment is donated to the competition. So, you know, every driver that gets in these trucks, it's a different truck to them. So it really levels out the playing field.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. And we've both touched on pieces of this, but Matt, I want to put your driving hat on. Run me through the day. You arrive to the course. What does the day look like?
Breakfast.
Most important meal of the day.
Hey, you know what? As a driver, yeah, absolutely. It's there's coffee, there's some orange juice, there's a little bit of a breakfast treat. You go sign your registration form, you check in, and then you just kind of take it all in and you kind of sit back. We then go out onto the track and we explore the layout of the track. And in years past, I have demonstrated each of the maneuvers in the golf cart. And it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of, you know, okay, so this is how you're approaching the right turn. This is where you get in and out of your truck for the first station there. And again, you're just kind of walking through and following me on the golf cart, and I'm kind of yelling because I haven't figured out the loudspeaker. You're listening to me kind of explain, and then I physically demonstrate each of the successive stations. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a heads up on this is how I'm going to approach it. You have an opportunity where we have drivers that will kind of pace things out and kind of scope things out so that they get an idea of where they want to have their wheels line up. And that's completely that's the whole point of the walkthrough, is to kind of get that physical lay of the land before you get into the vehicle. Once we complete the walkthrough, that's where we look at the sequestering. So depending on where your station is, you can probably relax a little bit. But if you're not in that first couple of categories, this gives you an opportunity to do your written test as well as the pre-trip. That kind of takes us up, depending on where you're competing and what your number is. That could take us up as far as lunch, and it just gives you a chance to hang around and see the people that you haven't seen in a year. And if you're brand new, you get to meet you get to meet some highly respected individuals within our industry. So that's part of the driver experience that I appreciate, and I have always appreciated. You knew who those drivers were that you could look up to. Even when I first started out, the team to beat was always Canadian Freightways. And they had just some of the most professional drivers that showed up year after year. Even when I came into the office and I got onto the committee, you knew those drivers, and you had that respect that they had earned throughout the course of their careers. So that association, that getting together and just appreciating the skills that we have developed and honed over the years, and I guess who can put that best foot forward to win the whole thing at the end of the day is the coolest part, because like I've said earlier, you can botch a station here. You can have, but if you can just keep it all together and you can get through to the very end, you have a very lovely dinner at the end of it. And that's where we can kind of have a chance to sit down, eat, enjoy the day, and reflect on the successes of our fellow drivers.
Absolutely. It's kind of an opportunity for everyone to take that deep breath after what's been a pretty long day for most of those involved. My favorite part of that piece is a lot of the drivers' families come. So for them to be able to see their mom or their dad or their guardian, what they do on a daily basis, right? It's not exactly take your kid to work day when you're a commercial driver. So seeing those interactions with the families, the other carriers, the volunteers is really awesome. Thank you, Matt. And as you both know, we had our first lady winner ever of the Grand Champion Award last year. That was Brandy Abramson with Rosano GLS. Don, anything we might have missed on what takes place during the day?
Well, there is definitely a lot going on. Matt summed up the driver's end pretty well there. From a volunteer side, I'm doing the math in my head of how many volunteers we actually have on the track on the day.
We average about 70 to 75.
For sure, because most of the stations will have, upwards to a half dozen, volunteers at that station, from measurements and all the rest of the stuff that they have to accomplish. So there's a lot of people. There's like 9 stations, so there's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts to this as the volunteers, and it wouldn't happen without the volunteers for sure. But it's the camaraderie amongst the stations, because a lot of these people have returned year after year, and a lot of familiar faces, and just running around to the different stations as we're facilitating the competition, just seeing how they all react and how they all interact with each other. It's really quite cool. There's a reason I've been doing it for so long,
right?
And just keeps me coming back year after year. So, and we're always looking for volunteers. So if anybody, is listening and they think that they may want to become a volunteer for this
Great plug,
event,
Don. Yes.
I highly recommend, looking into it. And, we all start somewhere. I mean, I first started out, moving cones and just doing different things, and, worked my way through the ranks, and, just keep showing up every year. It's such a fun event.
And I know from the staff organizing side too, you kind of get to be buddies with these guys. Like obviously I've known you guys for a decade now. There's Mr. Bingley from Lac La Biche. He is a very consistent Super B winner. I know that frustrates the heck out of some of the other drivers, but Tim just keeps crushing it year after year. Shout out to Mr. Red Crow, who always makes me laugh. He's with LTT. So we're seeing these drivers, and it's just so awesome to see them in a more relaxed kind of environment once they've competed, obviously. Okay, for you both, I'll start with you, Matt. Where do you see this event going within the next 5 to 10 years?
There's so many different options and opportunities that we could do with 5 to 10 years that it's really hard to say where it goes. I know we are kind of exploring this idea of introducing a tri-drive, whether that's a this year event or a next year event. We'll have to wait and see. But I could see this thing opening up to other parts of the transportation industry where we start entertaining other pieces of equipment. You just never know. Trucking is a truly diverse industry. Everything at some point moves by truck. So do we introduce a logging truck category? I mean, we're already kind of entertaining this cement truck.
Yep.
What other kind of equipment can we entertain? We've done Super B tankers. We've done regular B train pup trailers. Just the combinations and twists and permutations is endless. And I think that just kind of speaks to our industry and one of the strengths of our industries. So where it goes in 5 to 10 years, who knows? But it's going to be interesting to see.
Absolutely. And anything from you, Don?
Kelsey, I'm going to take this a little bit of a different direction.
Bring
here,
the thunder, my friend.
Where I will, kind of suggest some things to change. I like the event. I like the competition side of it, but I'm a believer that we need to attract new talent into the industry. We need to get younger talent into the industry, and we need to do that by showcasing not only the competition skills of it, but what does trucking actually do? And we kind of alluded to this earlier. We see these trucks going up and down the road, but we don't actually know what they do. We may see a livestock hauler. We know it's got some animals in there, but how does it work? How does it load? How does it unload? Same with fuel haulers. We see tankers. How does that work? So I believe there's room there to be able to, showcase certain pieces of equipment, and have, I'm going to go back to livestock, whether it's because kids like animals.
Absolutely. Yep.
So why not have a livestock hauler with some animals, and they can display how they load and unload, that type of stuff. And I think it needs to be more family oriented. We need to bring the moms, the dads, the kids together and showcase what this industry can offer the next generation of drivers, because that needs to be our focus. We need to focus on the next gen, and what better way to do that than an event like this? And I think there's room to make it a weekend event almost. Doesn't necessarily have to be just a one-day show. We could make it a whole weekend, and there's lots of activities that we could incorporate and make that together. I see bigger and brighter things for this event in the future.
Wonderful. And I should touch on the spectator side as well. We do have a kids tent. We make sure that there's food, drinks, snacks all day for folks. So we do encourage people to come down. There's transportation to and back and forth from parking. So we do try to make it kind of an overall family event. If you were ever kind of thinking about, hey, is this for me? Absolutely. Bring the kids. We have coloring contests, all sorts of fun stuff. Okay. I'm going to stay with you, Don, and then I'm going to come back to you, Matt. What makes the truck driving community unique compared to other industries?
That's a long question, Kelsey, for sure. As a former driver myself, I spent my fair share of time behind the wheel of a tractor trailer for sure, and it's unique in many ways. One, I don't like to call it a job because it's a lifestyle, and you have to be willing to put in the hours and put in the time. Some folks are fortunate enough to work in the city and have a day job, we'll call it, and be able to be home in the evenings. But for most of the long haul drivers, they're gone overnight, or they're gone for extended periods of time, and they don't see their families or their significant others, and that's tough. Most people who work Monday to Friday in an office don't quite understand that portion of trucking, but until you've lived it, it's trying on your family sometimes. So having an event like this and having this kind of inclusion for bringing your family around to show what a driver does every day is a great event, and I'm happy and proud to be a part of it.
I think that's huge. Thank you, Don. And Matt, same question.
Well, Don pretty much covered it. What makes this industry different than other industries is it takes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot. You know, you miss important dates, you miss important events. That's just the job, you know. If I'm going from Calgary to Los Angeles, that's 6 days.
Yeah.
Dispatch isn't trying to keep me out for 7 days. That's literally the job, to go down, deliver your freight, pick up your new freight, and come home. That's the commitment that a professional driver has to bring to the table in order to be able to do the job. That's just the way it is. So when you ask what's different, as Don said, you know, it's not an 8 to 5 thing. It's something where you're gone for a long time. The city guy that works from 6 till 3, that's not a normal gig. That's an outlier. And if you can find one of those, you're a lucky duck, because even in my driving experience, the best I can hope for is a 14-hour day running a set of turnpike doubles between Calgary and Edmonton. And it does take that long to go, you know, a 3-hour drive between Calgary and Edmonton, 6 hours. No, it's a full day. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's the job. And that's the commitment as a professional driver I have to bring to the table in order to get the job done. And so for an event like this, where we get to come around and celebrate the skills that we develop over the course of the years of our engagement in this industry, and this commitment that says, hey, I've been here, you know, 20 some odd years. This is what it cost. This is, and just to be able to turn around and to be able to celebrate that. I think that's what this event delivers. That's what this event brings to the table.
Absolutely. And I mean, on the flip side, from myself as one of those 9-to-5ers and the motoring public in general, I think it's so important to recognize the work that you guys do, that your counterparts do, because you are the reason that we have clothes on the shelf for back to school. Strawberries, because my kids eat them like candy. So it's just so important that every little thing you can think of that we as consumers purchase or use in our day-to-day, that is because of a truck driver. So thank you to you guys. Before I get too mushy, I'm going to wind down to our final question. Okay, Don, I'm going to pick on you first. Is there anything you would like to add before we close?
Well, Kelsey, I'd like to add that really, really excited for this year. You know, as we kind of talked about, we may be introducing a new category, which pretty stoked to see this. It's going to be great. New addition. I'm looking forward to the to meeting everybody and getting back up. And you know, one of the things that I really, you know, for me, it's about, you know, anybody that's known me, you know, any amount of time. Family is important to me, and that's why I like to give back to the industry. Sometimes I think the industry is like my family because I've been around it for so long. But I like to give back, and I like to watch the people in the stands, you know, as they're watching their loved ones, you know, competing in the event, and you know, little kids, and you know, we get, you know, once in a while we get to take the kids out for a little scoot in the golf cart, you know, follow them around as their mom or dad is competing, and just watching the smiles on their faces, and you know, just how all of that kind of goes together. It just makes the event such a worthwhile. It's a full day, but it's just worth everything just to pull it all off. And I'm just looking forward to that again this year.
And I mean, I think a huge piece too, I mean, you talked about getting the younger generation more interested in it. It starts when they're little, right? My kids are crazy about vehicles, and they have gotten to follow a truck around the track in the golf cart. A huge deal, and just kind of shows them it's not as simple as you go to the grocery store and there it is. There's a lot of steps from point A to point B to how it gets there. So thank you so much, Don. Matt, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just, from a volunteer's perspective, somebody that's been in the industry for as long as I have, I like Don's perspective where it's about giving back.
Mm-hmm.
I know what our drivers, our competitors, have to give up, and that's it's a lot. And so for me to be able to help the Alberta Motor Transport Association with this event, that's a small way that I can give back, because at the end of the day, this is a celebration of our professional drivers.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Okay, friends, now we'll end with some AMTA news. As mentioned, AMTA's Professional Truck Driving Championship takes place May 30th at AMTA's Edmonton International Airport location. Registration for both drivers and volunteers is now open. Please visit the events tab on amta.ca or keep an eye on our socials for details. As well, AMTA's 88th annual conference takes place in less than 2 weeks, and today, April 10th, is the final opportunity to purchase one of our few remaining delegate or trade show only passes. Learn more at amtaconference.ca before it's too late. AMTA's 2026 safety summits have been announced, and this year we'll be heading out to Medicine Hat on May 14th and White Court on September 30th. Details on our website, and we will see you there. Do you have any questions or comments about the Steering Change episodes? Reach out on our Instagram at AMTA_CA or LinkedIn and Facebook at Alberta Motor Transport Association. Stay safe and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AMTA's Steering Change podcast. The views expressed by guests of the Steering Change podcast are their own and may not reflect the views of AMTA, its hosts, or sponsors. Did you have a question that you would like answered on an upcoming episode of the Steering Change podcast? We want to hear from you. To submit a question to the Steering Change mailbag, hit up our DMs on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram with the hashtag Steering Change, and your question will be answered either live on the podcast or by one of our SMEs here at AMTA. We ask that you share this episode with those in your network that could benefit from what we discussed today, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be notified when future episodes are released. You can learn more about us and our mission by visiting www.amta.ca. Now get out there and have a safe day.